Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to my channel. Amongst other things, I'm a reenactor and a jouster, but today I'm not going to be talking to you too much. I'm going to be talking to Augusto, who you may recognize if you go on some Facebook accounts. He's been doing so much research into medieval armor. It is amazing. And if you follow Matt Easton's channel, Scholar Gladiatoria, you may have met him previously at the Wallace collection. So, Augusto, just tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello everybody. I am an armorer. I'm a professional full-time armorer from Italy, even though I'm based in Sweden because of university studies and such. So I have been doing reenactment since I was 14. That was like 12 years ago or so. And of course, as a beginner and doing research mostly on my own and hanging out in forums like the Armor Archive or My Armory in the earliest years. Some of you might be aware of those. And then, so over the years, I've been doing just a lot of like self-research and like reading mostly English written books about arms and armor, a bit of history. And so yeah, I've been working as a professional armorer for now officially since December of 2018. That's when I opened my company. And recently I also have started to ride and taking like historical riding lessons with Arne Kutz, which some of you might be familiar with. So since armor was supposed to be used mostly on horseback, then I think it's very beneficial to learn how to ride properly in a let's say a medieval style, or at least with a medieval mindset, and to better understand how armor is supposed to work.
Yeah. So you say that you armor professionally. What's the name of your company and how can we get?
It's Magister Armorum, so you'll find me either on Facebook as Augusto Boer Bront, Magister Armorum, or on Instagram at Magister Armorum. And I do have a website as well, but now it's temporarily down due to some like reworkings and updating.
Cool. Okay, and we'll put links to those down below so you can get in touch. Now, I contacted you because I wanted to do a video on something that kind of you've been a bit of a champion of in the past. Certainly for about a year, I know that I've been aware of it.
Much longer than that. Much longer than that, I'm afraid.
In real life. So basically, in accepted historical circles, there's kind of been an idea that when you hit the late 14th and into the 15th century, great helms, the classic knight helmet is not really used anymore in a battlefield context, and certainly not in a foot fighting context. And you've been challenging that assertion.
Yes, this started years ago, at least. I would say 5-6 years ago, when I started noticing how mostly, as you were saying, like late 14th century, early 15th century, when there is this kind of abandoning of the great helm as the main cavalry helmet. So then the bastonet does supplant the great helm, and then you see less and less great helms like in depictions of battles and tournaments and such. And it's more specifically the use of this like frogmouth great helms. Yeah. So where the frontal plate for the face protrudes compared to the upper faceplate. So I have here one example. I can just show you what I'm talking about. So then you have this lip that protrudes forward from the top, where
Yeah.
it is said that they are purely cavalry helmets, and somebody also says that they are purely jousting helmets, not even used for the battlefield anymore.
That's something that I've said myself.
Yes.
You know, and I've told people this, so I'm really interested to have a chat about this. Get
And
some more.
if you do look at artwork from the 1390s until the 1410, 1420s, you do start noticing some of these helms being used on foot in random battlefield situations. So
Yeah.
then it does look to me, it looks like that of course, it's been shown less and less than in previous decades, where basically almost every figure in a manuscript or in a fresco has these helmets on their heads, and they're fighting with them. But it becomes more rare, but it is still quite present consistently in artwork throughout Europe. So it's not only a regional thing. These helms, they do every now and then show up in the background, and is not sometimes you could argue that, or people have been arguing that this great helm, the Frogmouth, is kind of the symbol of a knight. So then if somebody is depicted while wearing one, they just want to show, oh, this is a knight, that's what knights wear, because in a joust the knightly class jousts with a Frogmouth. So then it's only natural to depict somebody fighting in a battle scene. And these are two knights, so therefore I'm going to put great helms on top of them. While that might be true if that was consistent like that, but it is not, because we have random people in the background. So it's not even the main protagonist. There's some dude in the background with an axe or a pike or a poleaxe just fighting with a Frogmouth on. So it's a bit more nuanced than that, I think.
And I think one of the classic things that I've kind of tried to fight against, when we see something in art that goes against our ideas, we tend to think, well, the artist has got it wrong. And that's something that has, a lot of people have said in response to these pictures coming up. I think one of the things that we need to bear in mind with that is that, yes, artists do get things wrong. You've only got to look at Hollywood and see Hollywood does get things wrong. But what we're looking at here is artwork they're doing it to them, modern day battles as well as historical battles. And they're making it for the nobility. The nobility would expect a certain level of understanding from their artists. They're not making it for a large public in the way that Hollywood makes war movies for everyone. It would be like trying to make a war movie specifically for veterans, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And there's so many different layers and approaches that one can get to this whole question: is who was the artist, and who was it for, like you just said, which medium is it on? Is it a big fresco, or is it like a small miniature? Is it like an altarpiece? There's very many facets to this issue, but I would say we could start unraveling from firstly the physical object itself, so the helmet, because that's Frogmouths and Frogmouths.
Yeah.
There are purely jousting helms, which are, of course, we have mentions of jousting helms from like 1320, 1310 in inventory. So there were already specifically jousting helms made and designed, and they have different physical characteristics than a normal helm or a tournament helm for that matter. So we do have extant ones in the Wallace collection, in the Royal Armories, and in other places where these do belong to this early 15th century grouping of helms, which are quite clearly jousting helms because they're quite heavy, they're quite thick. They are, one in the Royal Armory is like 8 millimeter thick at the brow and at the lower lip, and then it goes down to 2. And that's quite clearly like a jousting helm. And this most likely will rest on your shoulders. If it's late enough in the 15th century, they will be strapped to your cuirass, front and back, which are not the same ones that are being depicted in these battle scenes on foot or on horse. where sometimes you can see there is a gap between the helm and the shoulders. So then you can rotate your head. You can tilt it up and down. Just that you don't need that much. But these are clearly different helmets that are being depicted in this battle scenes compared to the ones for jousting. Even though on the surface they look very similar, but then in my theory, most likely these were like two different helmets, and that's why I've been working on a production for myself where I wanted to try this idea of a frogmouth for foot.
Yeah.
So then I designed something that still sits on my head, but it doesn't sit on my shoulders. There are a few depictions. There's especially one effigy from Italy from 1405, where you can see the knight wearing this helmet, and you can see from below the helmet, you can see actually the upper edge of the breastplate and the mail collar poking from under the breastplate. So he's not wearing a bassinet under a helm, which was the norm up until 1400. And you can see a gap in the first place. So then there is one. So then the whole helmet is not resting on the shoulders and on the chest plate. Therefore, I assume that it is just a normal great helm, like they have been designed and worn for decades before, because also let's remember that most of the time also the 14th century great helm is not sitting on your shoulders and being this bunker. You do need to turn your head. They use them on foot, they use them on horse, they use them in sieges sometimes. So then they have to be a somewhat flexible piece of equipment in a way, as in they need to do different things with them. So therefore, they were designed to be versatile and be used in different scenarios.
I think that's a really good point as well, that they were used for hundreds of years beforehand. You know, obviously not in that specific style, but the great helm was in use, and so people did obviously consider it to be a worthwhile helmet for hundreds of years.
Yes.
It seems very unlikely that everyone in Europe suddenly goes, oh, it's 1385. Put your great helms away, guys. You know?
And that is what, like, some of the literature, the more nuanced one is by definition more nuanced. So then it does explain a bit and expand on the decreased popularity in the helm. But some of the literature kind of puts an arbitrary date where it was only used for jousting from that point on. And while it is, to me, quite clear that the great helm evolved, and you can also see well into the 15th century, you can still see another random knight on horse on the background having one of these helms as well. And while everybody else is having like armets and sallets and barboots and kettle hats, where they still keep depicting some random person with one of these very protective helms, because they are nice helms to wear if you're really afraid of getting hit in your face by crossbow bolts or lances or what have you. So the personal preference of the knights themselves, or the men-at-arms themselves. Some people are very claustrophobic and can't deal with visors and closed helmets and bevers, and they really want to be able to hear, to see, to breathe. And I don't see many people disputing, they're wearing open face visors, how stupid. Some people do, but it's a very tiny minority where people don't really believe that soldiers would go out in a battlefield without a face protection when they had the option of having one.
Yeah, in many ways, an armet gives very similar vision
yes.
to a great helm like yours, and very similar movement as well.
Yes.
Weight-wise, armets can vary massively.
Yes.
Yeah, and I assume your reproduction that you fight in, because you
yes, which I have,
is probably, I mean, it might even be lighter than my armet. I don't know the thickness that you've got.
So if we talk a bit just for a second about my reproduction and how it compares to an armet, let's say. So this helmet is made of 4mm mild steel on the on the skull, and on the
Sure.
faceplate going down to 2 millimeters on the edge, and then the backplate is 2 millimeters. So the
Yeah.
helmet weighs 4.7 kilograms
Sure.
altogether. And it is a bit on the small side of things, but also have a very, very small head. So
Yeah.
then it's also gonna have to be proportional to the wearer. And usually our mats by themselves are on the 2.8 to 3 kilo mark, plus the wrapper and the Aventel. So then I would add at least 1.5, 2 more kilos to that.
Yeah.
So then the weights are kind of comparable, and our mat might even be heavier than this.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah.
And fighting in it, I fought on foot with this, and I also been riding on horseback and do some jousting training with it on. And the main takeaway is that it is not that restrictive if you don't strap it on the front. One of the great things about these helms is what I love is this back strap. This is a lifesaver for I think any kind of helm, because this helm is very front heavy, so then it tends to tip forward. And without this back strap being secured to a back plate, or in my case, my army doublet, but that's a stopgap measure. Without this back strap, the helmet would just continuously fall forward and I would not be able to see anything. While having it strapped in the back, it still allows me to rotate my head sideways a bit. I can't look down that much, but you can just bend your whole torso a little bit and you'll be able to see plenty enough anyways. But you can you're still able to turn quite a bit your head with the whole helmet. And fighting on foot, I haven't had that much problem, because if you have to set it right, so then there's different holes in the helmet, in the strap. So then before a fight, I had to, okay, I'm gonna fight a very tall person, so then I need to put my vision slit a bit higher up, because I want to be able to see at least their shoulders and their head. While if I were fighting a shorter person, like something my height or lower, then I would make the helmet a bit lower down. And we do see this often in depictions where they have a lot of holes, where they would choose their setting, I think, for fighting. And then also applies on horse, because I remember one of the first time I tried it on horseback, I had to, if I was going to hit ground targets, I wanted the helmet to sit a bit lower, where if I was training on a quintain just to hit, like for jousting training, then I would like to have a bit of a higher angle to the helmet itself. And of course it has its limitations, but the protection it gives, I think, to me, it outweighs all the drawbacks, because I really like to be enclosed and feel safe in my armor. So then I personally feel like all the faffing around with the back strap and the fact that you're not allowed to see below that much, I think it's a fair trade for the amount of protection that you're given.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out here that we're not talking about a helmet with drawbacks compared to a helmet that is absolutely perfect.
Good luck with that.
Every helmet that is worn in the medieval period, if we're talking about the 15th century here, has its own drawbacks. And having to maybe change the hole that your helmet buckle is on before you go into battle doesn't seem like that big of a drawback to me. You're going to have squires around anyway, I should say valets around, who are going to be handing you your weapons or adjusting your armor anyway. So
yes,
needs adjustment probably every half hour to an hour, as not slip and things like that happen. Rip, fail. We're not talking about a big unanswerable problem. This isn't something that is going to be a massive problem for the support group that a knight would be bringing to battle.
Yes, they did have retainers, they did have helpers. Armor needs to be fixed every now and then. You need to set it in a certain way. And I'm quite certain that they have facing the same problems because, or not problems, but the same, the armor had the same features as a good modern productions do. Armor fails, rivets fail, straps break, and then you need somebody to give you a hand while you're in the thick of battle. Or if you're on a horse, you're lucky enough, you can just ride off. If you're like a big enough group of people, you can just ride off, wait 5 minutes, and then you get one of your valets, and then they may be able to just come around the little woods that you stopped in, and then take your helmet off or fix it, or come with the other. Maybe you're going to battle with the Great Helm, and then the Great Helm gets busted, and then the valet comes with a cattle hat that you have spare, and then now you have a cattle hat, and better than no helmet.
Yeah, and we have as well, from a horse riding point of view, written accounts of the more heavily armored men at arms with their heavily armored horses being placed at the front of the lines.
Yeah.
But they are also supported by more lightly armored people.
Yes.
So I think it's really interesting that the paintings that you've shared don't tend to show everyone with these helmets. But I can really see a really good option being having a few people with these helmets, putting them in the front of your lines to be pillboxes that basically just are the hardest people to kill. Or maybe, you know, the enemy army brings their archers forwards, so you bring forwards your guys that are wearing the heavier armor, which might include a great helm. And then when the enemy troops start getting into your lines, the people with lighter helmets that can move a bit faster can then move around them and support them. So they're not getting, so the more heavily armored troops aren't getting surrounded, which was always one of the big arguments against using Frogmouth in combat.
Is that like field awareness, like vision, but you're fighting in group. Most likely been training these things with these other people, so then you know your limitations and they know yours. And it's not like that, for example, a sallet with a visor has that much more peripheral vision than that kind of helmet. I mean, you can turn your head, but you still don't hear anything. You still can't see below your, below somebody's waist. If you do wear like a early 16th century German Stackhelm bolted to your cuirass, then you're gonna have a bit of a tricky time to like move about. But these are not what is depicted in the various depictions.
And and comparing those things, looking at the ones that we know to be jousting helmets, would be like taking a 16th century jousting sallet.
Yes.
Oh, this doesn't give any movement in the neck, therefore we can't use it on foot. So I really love that you've gone out, you've noticed something, and you've built a reproduction of this lighter great helmet, and you're trying it for yourself, and trying it in different ways. I think this is where reenactment and experimental archaeology really comes into its own. You know, a lot of people online, myself included in the past, have said it's impossible to do this. And what you've done is you've gone out and said, well, I've seen a lot of evidence that they did do it. And so I'm going to make myself this type of helmet and I'm going to try it out. I have a feeling that that those of us who said that the artist didn't know what they were talking about will be eating our words. I guess it's a bit of a warning to all of us in ways. I've on my channel, I've got a bit of a series called Mistakes I've Made as a Reenactor, and one of the ones that keeps coming up is making sweeping statements. It's very easy to say, you know, this is impossible. You can't do this, even in spite of evidence. So,
yeah, and the thing is, of course, to reiterate, is it is really rare. It is very uncommon. It gets less and less as the 15th century progresses. So these helms are depicted less and less. So definitely there was a reason why most people shifted to sallets, armets, and such, because I would imagine mostly visors, because having a visor is such a massive advantage, being able to breathe for 30 seconds and then close it down again. While that's the biggest drawback of that helmet, you can gas out really quickly. You can get a run of air really fast, and you can get exhausted really quickly. But that doesn't take away the fact that it is consistently depicted by different artists from different regions with different backgrounds, in different mediums, in different decades. And it just, the amount of evidence, as small and rare as it is, it's consistent. It was a thing. It was rare. It was for certain circumstances, and it was for certain people with a certain mindset. And as I said, like, my preference is to really wear enclosing, encompassing armor and feel like kind of hugged and really safe in my armor, while other people are really constricted and really don't like to not be able to see like the ground and stuff like that. So it's to each their own.
And that's the thing. It's an option that was available.
Yes.
And the medieval battlefield was and medieval war gear was a very personal thing. People would get paid based on how protected they were,
yes,
and how much gear they could bring.
Yes.
But what that looked like within that was basically down to you. Oh, you've got full harness. Here's how much you get paid per day. But, you know, there was no real. It was down to people's personal preference how thick the armor was, and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. You know what? This has been a really great chat. I've enjoyed this. Hopefully,
me too.
Good. Hopefully everyone else has enjoyed it at home. It would be great to do more of these as time goes on, and chat about
absolutely.
So if you guys at home would like that, please do leave a like and leave a comment about things that you would like to talk about. If you've got any questions for Augusto, put them in the comments down below, and I'm sure that we can either get them answered, or if they need a bit longer, we can do another one of these and have a bit more of a chat. Thank you very much, Augusto.
Thank you, Zach.
We'll put your links in the comments, and we'll carry on this discussion, because I'm really excited to see as you build your armor and complete it, maybe with a backplate as well.
Yes, that would be eventually, but of course, as always, the armorers are always the last one to get their own armor.
Yeah. I think there's a saying, something like, the plumber's toilet is always broken.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. And I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye, guys.